Hello, and welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, morally and ethically, and with real-world, first-hand experience. As always, I'm your host, Michael Melito. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review of the podcast. Only takes a few minutes, but probably less than a minute if you want to give a quick review. If you think the information in these podcasts is useful, try and help more people find it. Plug in the bio, and we'll get into today's topic. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a three-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other three-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. Today's topic is going to be on things that are forgotten, but still good. I'm blessed to have come along right at the transition of an era. This gun culture 2.0, which there's a lot of great things about. Concealed carry for the common man, the average alpha male concealed carrying and seeking professional training, and there's a lot of good to it. You know, a lot more Americans owning AR-15s and sidearms. That's a great thing. But there's a bigger world out there in the gun world, and I think a lot of things that don't fit into the gun culture 2.0 have kind of fallen by the wayside. So I'd like to bring some of those to light today. Things that were good in days of yore. The wisdom of our fathers that I don't want to be forgotten. The first one I'm going to talk about is bullet construction. Bullets have come a long way, especially in handguns. I would encourage you to carry, for self-defense, human violence for your sidearm, a good, well-constructed, modern technology bullet. But let's not forget about the other great ones. How about wad cutters and semi-wad cutters? If you don't know about these, they're kind of like the ballistic champions. I'm talking internal ballistics of yesteryear. A wad cutter is basically like a soup can coming out of the cartridge. It's just basically a cone of lead. They're great for a lot of things. Likewise, the semi-wad cutter, picture that cone of lead that somebody put a flat nose triangle onto, or picture like a quintessential ceramic flower pot flipped and put on top of that. It's almost exactly what they look like. And instead of pushing stuff out of the way, whatever stuff you want to picture that to be, like a round-nosed bullet generally does, these tend to cut pretty precisely. The straight wad cutters are great and primarily used for cutting really good holes in paper. Competition shooting, for things like that. You want to cut a clean hole in the paper to know whether you a scoring ring or not. They're also good for other stuff like medium to small game hunting. And a lot of the great hunters in the past, especially for handguns, or really for a lot of the straight walled cartridges, the semi-wad cutters were known for being great, and they still are great for hunting. They still are great where you want penetration and good ballistic performance. You see, every time the bullet's diameter expands as in a hollow point, its ability to penetrate decreases. That's not so with a semi-wad cutter. It's not designed to expand. It's generally designed to penetrate deep and do damage along the way. For instance, if you're talking about hiking and bear defense or bear hunting or deer hunting, the semi-wad cutters are still a great choice. A good hard cast, meaning you use something else besides straight lead, lionite or tin or any number of minerals that harden lead, casting those bullets. If you do it yourself, like I did when I was a child with my dad, you get a very good ballistically performing bullet that you can make yourself for not a lot of money. In fact, if you look at a lot of like buffalo bore loads, a lot of times they'll still load bullets like that because they're good ballistically. Like I said, modern hollow point ammunition has come a long way and has really increased the effectiveness of modern semi-automatic handguns. But they're not always the best. Don't forget about the wad cutters and semi-wad cutters. The next one is the .22 Hornet. 22 Hornet is a great round. We did a whole episode on it you can look up. But the 22 Hornet, I think, has kind of been forgotten. Everybody still knows and loves the .22 long rifle. And most people, when they jump up to the .223, and that's a giant leap. You might want something in the middle. You might want something, let's say, for hunting prairie dogs or rock chucks or woodchucks or marmots at reasonable distances, inside 200 yards. And a lot of you might be thinking, well, why not the .22 Magnum? Well, the .22 Magnum is not a cheap round. The benefit to the .22 Hornet is you can reload it, and you get a lot of flexibility. Grain weight, you can load it up, you can load it down, and you don't generally get that flexibility in a .22 Magnum. I think .22 Hornet's kind of been overshadowed. Sometimes you don't need a .223. If you kill a rock chuck, if you hit a rock chuck with a .22 Hornet, it's not going to be any more dead with a .223. And you use less powder, generally less noisy. Because of barrel harmonics, it tends to be very accurate because it doesn't move the barrel around in firing as much as, let's say, a .223. Now, I'm not saying it should replace a .223, and a .223 is a great round, but in some situations you might find it more beneficial. Running through the swamps with a pair of muck boots on and some coon hounds chasing coons at night. Great round for that. Hunting rock chucks or prairie dogs where you want to reload a volume of ammo. You're not trying to see how far, like you're not trying to kill a prairie dog at 400 yards with a .22-250, which is also fun, but requires a lot more powder per round. So don't forget the .22 Hornet just because the .223 is now so prolific. Another one is number 4 buck. Now, number 4 buck is my favorite go-to load in a 12 gauge and a 20 gauge. Everybody today, when you talk about buckshot, their mind immediately goes to double aught, double aught, double aught. And double aught can be better in some situations. In my personal experience for bear, for deer, I like number 4 buck. Average double aught buck load, you're getting 8 pellets, 9 pellets, step up to a 3-inch magnum shell, maybe 12 pellets. One of my old classic go-to, Remington green and yellow box express, 2 3/4, your standard shell, number 4 buck, 27 pellets. If I remember correctly, number 4 buck, something like 22 or 24 caliber. You're getting 27 of those as opposed to 8 or 9. That same Remington green and yellow box, number 4 buck, you step up to a 3-inch, you're getting 41 pellets as opposed to 12 in the double aught buck and a 3-inch. 41 pellets. I said, in my experience, if you're shooting at a living creature at a reasonable distance, those 41 pellets have one of 2 of those have a much higher propensity to hit something vital. I'd rather have those 41 going through the veins and arteries and organs of an animal than 8 or 9 that are a little bit bigger. I think, if I remember correctly, double aught buck is around 30 caliber. Double aught buck is great, and I think because a lot of times the military and police use something and it gets adopted and gets thinking that it's always the best, but really number 4 buck in my experience, amazing. And it is my go-to hunting and defense load with a 12 gauge. If you listen, one of my go-to, like if I had to pick just one gun for the rest of my life, for the apocalypse, for day-to-day, for anything, if I only had to have one gun, it'd be a 12 gauge shotgun, in my case a Benelli M2. And if I had to use one load for big game hunting and defense, it would be number 4 buck. Really take a look at it. Not always better, but a lot of times better. Along that lines, if you want something a little bit in the middle, look at number 1 buck. It's a little bit more rare, but you can find it. Now, we all know the new gun culture, the hot things are the AR-15s and adapting them to hunting, and the new precision bolt-action rifles, and both of those are great. But don't forget about an old soldier that hasn't gone away. The 760 Remington. It's a pump-action rifle, similar to the famous 870 shotgun, but it's a pump-action rifle on a full caliber, like a pistol caliber, not like a sub-caliber. Like in 30-06, 308, 280 Remington, it's a pump-action, fast-handling rifle that handles well and points well. To me, points like an 870. I don't really know why I don't own one, other than I'm not a gun collector. I'm a gun shooter, but I believe it's called the Game Master, and it probably deserves that title. My best friend, I got him one of these years and years ago, and I believe to this day it's his only rifle except for a 22, and he takes deer with it all the time, still hunts with it. Many of our fathers and grandfathers hunted with these. They are great. You can have them in areas and jurisdictions where you can't have a semi-auto or where you can't hunt with a semi-auto. These are great, and again, they come in a full power cartridge, the 30-06, the 308, the 270, the 280, the Remington Model 760. For putting big game on the table. You're spot and stalking or still hunting or swamp hunting or hunting with dogs where it's legal. It is a phenomenal and formidable rifle. Now, with all the drama with the Remington, who knows if they'll bring these back? But if you can find one, and generally they don't command a high price tag, you want a utilitarian working man's tool for putting meat on the table, I'd give a good hard look to the 760 Remington. A workhorse, for sure. The next one is fixed power scopes. Now, I think for a lot of things, the new LPVOs are fantastic. I have them on my go-to rifles. They're great for if you're going to shoot at 3 yards, clearing a room, and if you're going to shoot at 500 yards. They can do all that, and that's great, but that's not always the application that you need. Fixed power scopes are great for a lot of reasons. They require a lot less moving parts, and hence can be made very rugged, and for not as much money as a variable power optic. So you get a more robust optic, a simpler optic, which I like simple when it comes to shooting, and with less moving parts. But a fixed power scope, if you're not going to be going from 3 yards to 500, if you're going to be going from 25 yards to 250 yards, which is reasonable for a lot of situations, a fixed power scope is great for a lot of things. A 2.5 fixed, a 4 fixed, a 6 fixed, those are great optics, especially from a good quality company. If your main thing is rugged reliability and you don't have a ton of money to dump, $1,000 or $2,000 on an LPVO, I'd really look at a fixed power scope. Don't forget that they exist in the world of, 4 to 12 and 4 to 16 power scopes. You can just get a straight 4. The next one, I guess I can't put in forgotten, but a lot of new shooters, they just always go to Kydex, always go to ballistic nylon. Those things are great. Those are my go-to as well. And I'm not saying that leather is better for everything. I'm not even saying that leather is better for most things. But leather is better for some things. A good quality leather holster has some advantages. It bends, it molds, doesn't cut in or dig into you for hiking sometimes. For, inside the waistband super discreet carry or outside the waistband discreet carry. Get a tone of leather that matches your skin. It's called concealed carry. You should conceal it, but if it goes from time to time, something that blends in with your skin and your skin tone tends to stand out less than black Kydex. Like I said, it also will mold and shape, and that can be a good thing, especially a well-worn-in leather holster. I consider myself a modern gunfighter. When I joined LAPD in the early 2000s, after the war, or after I went to war, the war's still going on, crazy. But we were still issued thumb brake leather, holsters that we had to polish. And they're fast, and they're good at a lot of things. And the Arizona Rangers were training at the facility that I manage. Just yesterday they were there, and at least one of them, maybe more, had, the old leather polished thumb brake holsters. And those are great. They're fast, they're secure, they're still great holsters. And that's something you could probably find pretty reasonably on eBay, a good quality thick leather holster for if you have a gun that's been around a while, a Glock full-size frame or mid-size frame, or the Berettas. Those holsters are great. Probably get them for a fraction of the cost of what they're worth, what they're actually worth. Like I said, they're not better for everything. For a lot of things, Kydex is better. But for some things, leather is better. So don't forget that leather exists. Don't forget that you can get a good quality leather holster, a good quality leather sling. The old military leather slings, if you don't know how to use those, I would really consider getting one of those and running it and actually learning how to use it, how to make different slings around your bicep and things like that. For practical shooting, they can be amazing. Don't think that you always need the tactical, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, quick adjust slings. Those are great for a lot of things. But some things, just an old, good leather sling can really increase your effectiveness in a lot of situations. Going to Kydex holsters, one that's been around a long time, back when they first started becoming popular. The next thing I'm going to mention is the Marlin Model 60. The Marlin Model 60 was prolific, and for decades it was neck and neck with the Ruger 1022. And with a lot of people wanting more modularity and wanting to do quick mag changes and put giant magazines in and things like that, the Ruger 1022 kind of overshadowed it by quite a bit now. The Marlin Model 60 I don't think today is nearly as popular as the 1022. But if you're talking about a good practical design, now I can't say anything because I own 2 Ruger 1022s and I own 0 Marlin Model 60s. But I think if you're looking for like a woods hunting small game gun or a gun introducing new shooters, the Marlin Model 60 is great. I recently went trying to teach my Rhodesian Ridgeback the ins and outs of hunting and successfully hunting. On our last expedition, the magazine on my Ruger 1022 fell out twice, or came unclicked twice, fell out once. You don't have that problem with the Marlin Model 60 because it has a classic tube feed under the barrel design, which I think for hunting is plenty. Generally don't need to do a quick mag change in hunting. Usually you shoot a shot or two on a squirrel or two, or a rabbit or two, or a bird or two, and then you top it off. and you don't have to worry about losing a magazine with the Marlin Model 60. They're a great design. They're a great gun. If you're looking for that application, I would say give a good hard look at the Marlin Model 60. It is a fantastic gun and known for being very accurate. The microgroove rifling that Marlin is kind of famous for, it's a great design and a great gun. So really look at your application, what you're going to use it for, and consider the Marlin Model 60. For a lot of things, 1022 is going to be better. But again, not for everything. Don't forget about the Marlin Model 60. The next one I'm going to talk about is a cartridge that was never as popular, in my opinion, as it should have been. And that's the 357 SIG. The 357 SIG is an awesome round. If you're not familiar with it, if you're not familiar with the whole 10mm and the FBI wanting to adopt it and make it less powerful and making the 40 Smith & Wesson, the 40 Smith & Wesson was a thing, but I think as soon as the 357 SIG came out, it should have always been more popular than the 40 Smith & Wesson. I'm not a fan of the 40 Smith & Wesson. It was the first, duty-issued handgun when I was a police officer, Glock 22. I think it's a bad choice for almost any application. I'm not a fan of the 40. If you are, that's fine. Just know that I'm not. I switched from 40 to 45 to 9 long before it was the cool thing, back when everybody knew you had to have a 40. But I think the 357 SIG is an awesome round. Basically, if you take the 10mm and neck it down and make it the overall length of a 40, and put a 9mm bullet in it. I know it's called the 357 SIG, but it doesn't use .357 bullets. It uses .355 bullets. Don't know why they chose to do that. If it were me designing it, I probably would have went with .357 just because of the different bullets that are available. But just know that going in. But it is a fantastic round. It gives you quite a big step up in ballistics. And in the most popular self-defense round, loading for the 357 Magnum, the 125 grain, it gets awfully close. I won't say it's exactly, but it gets awfully close in those loadings. If you know about the 357 Magnum and its history in police work, you'll know that it has a great one-shot stop ratio for a handgun. And you know that the 357 SIG gets close to that, and you can put it in a semi-automatic handgun on a normal size frame, the 9mm size frame gun. I think, like I said, that it always should have been, as soon as it came out, more popular than the 40. I think it's a more effective round. It is quite loud, but it, I believe, gives you less felt recoil than the 40 and better ballistic performance. And because it's not so popular, and because 40 Smith & Wesson is kind of a dead cartridge now, all you need to convert a 40 gun in most cases to a 357 SIG gun is to drop in a barrel. It uses the same extractor, same slide, same everything. And a lot of times right now you can get 40 Smith & Wesson guns for a bargain. And if it's a common gun, you can get a conversion barrel. If you're looking for something, and I love the 9mm, but if you're looking for a step up in ballistics performance and a similar sized handgun, the 357 SIG is an awesome round, and I don't know why it isn't now and hasn't been more popular. We've seen the 10mm make a resurgence in past years, which I think is great. I would love to see the 357 SIG. These things go in cycles. Perhaps 357 SIG, people will realize its merits in the future. But take advantage of it while you can get those 40 Smith & Wesson guns, the trade-ins, the guns like that, for a very good price, and convert to 357 SIG. It's a great round. Just because it's not popular doesn't mean it's not an awesome round. The next one I'm going to talk about is similar, and it's the 327 Federal. It was kind of one of those, it's going to be the next latest and greatest thing that wasn't, and those come along every year. There's a couple of them every year. But the 327 really is great, and for maybe not the reason you're thinking, you can shoot, I believe, 32 Smith & Wesson, 32 H&R, 327 Federal, and there may be another one or two in there that you can shoot. And that gives you quite a flexible firearm. You're talking about a revolver, or perhaps even a lever-action gun. But the 327 Federal, with the right loads, would be fine for medium-sized game with proper shot placement. You can also shoot the much smaller and much weaker loaded rounds. For just going out and shooting a gun without a lot of recoil, that's a lot of fun to shoot, or for small game hunting where you don't want to blow the animal apart. And you can generally get it in smaller framed guns. There's still several manufacturers that make guns in the 327 Federal. And the big reason it was marketed was that you could get in like a J-frame, which is one of my favorite carry guns. The small Smith & Wesson J-frames, instead of 5 shots, you can get 6. That's not a big selling point to me. I would never get one for that reason, but if I wanted a good, flexible, all-around hunting gun from small game to big game, it really is in that sweet spot. We talked about, the hard cast semi-wad cutters. A hard cast semi-wad cutter, good construction bullet in a 327 Federal Magnum, is quite a potent round. So if you're looking for a cool little niche cartridge that's super flexible, it's hard for me to think of one that's more flexible than the 327. I think that'll be it for today's broad topic of things that are forgotten but still good. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, don't forget to scroll down, hit some stars, leave a review. It only takes a short amount of time. If you thought this information was good and useful and entertaining, hopefully you want to share that with other men that will find it useful as well. And that's a free way that helps. If you want to help support the podcast financially, because these are free to listen to but not free to put out, or if you want to check out some cool pictures or videos or contact me, your one-stop shop for all that is goodshepherdtraining.com. Scroll down to the Patreon link. Anyway, goodshepherdtraining.com. Should mention we now have merch on there, cool metal coffee cups, shooting shirts, things like that. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com. On that and on the Patreon, a sincere thanks to all the patrons on there. And as a thank you to that, I recently, as in today, right before this podcast, uploaded a bunch of new videos. I get a lot of questions about shooting drills, practice drills, things like that. So for the patrons, I uploaded quite a few practical drills for the real world that can be done and duplicated, modified, and that I think will be super useful. And there's videos of me running them, videos of me administering those drills, having guys run those in my professional career. Just one little small perk that's available to the patrons on there. With that, guys, is a thank you for staying tuned till the end of the episode. The tactical tip of the day. So, as far as carrying a handgun goes, just know that, in general, for most applications, the quickest way to access that is going to be on your strong side, your dominant hand, on the belt somewhere. If you want to find out where that is for you, stand how you would normally stand, relaxed, and then bring your hands up if you were going to shoot in the most direct possible way. One of the keys to shooting fast is not moving really, really fast. It's doing as little as possible. It's doing the fewest amount of steps to get that gun from where it is to the front sight on the target and properly aligned to pull the trigger. The less you have to do that, the faster you will be, the faster your potential is. So with that being said, relax and bring your hands from where they normally are in the rest position to up in front of your face in that front sight on target. Where that gun crosses your belt line, where your hands cross your belt line, that's where you want your holster and your gun set up. Whatever the position, whatever the angle. Now you can't always do that, but that is your best, most optimal place to put that holster. If you have to twerk your wrist in a weird kind of way to grab your gun, if you have to move your hand backwards or forwards to grab that gun, it's going to be slower. I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I carry my gun farther back because it's easier to conceal. Smaller the back. Instead of in the 3 o'clock, I might put it in the 4 o'clock because it hides it better with an open shirt. And I fully admit that I'm losing some speed doing that. But if you want a good place to start, and if you want the fastest possible way, you want your hand to pass that gun naturally and grab it at your belt line without having to do any extra movement. And that's my tactical tip of the day. If you want to be quicker, faster gunfighter with a faster draw, start there. Be efficient. Be effective. Get out there and be a gunfighter. With that, guys, thanks for listening and have a blessed day. And as an added bonus, I thought I'd throw in a scripture for this. Find this in Proverbs 24. A wise man is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength. For by wise counsel you will wage your own war. And in a multitude of counselors there is safety. A true gunfighter, a true warrior, is strong, spirit, soul, mind, and body. That applies to more than just gunfighting. I submit that all men are warriors every day. There's always a battle. Many times that war, that conflict is inside us. between good and evil, between doing good and doing evil, between being lazy and manning up and doing what we should do and what we're supposed to do instead of what we feel like doing. So get out there and fight the good fight. Amen.